Okay, hello everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are officially live. Hello. My name is Will. I am a writer, and tonight I'm going to do something that I call improv horror. I literally want people in the chat to throw out topics, suggestions, and then hopefully right on the spot, I'm going to whip up a little horror story for fun. You can follow me online. I'm at The Myth Traveler. My website is themythtraveler.com. It is where I keep all of my writing. You can find everything there. Most of it is public. Some of it is private, but if you back me, you can get access to that. I've actually got a story up right now exclusively for my backers for a little bit. So poke around, have a good time. I've got a bunch of audio dramas up there, a lot of concepts of stories up there, which I think is really fun and something that I like to do a lot, is just without embarrassment, without shame, throw ideas at the wall and see if anything sticks, either with an audience or sticks for me. Does it entertain me? Is it something that I enjoy making and doing? So I'm going to give people some time to get in here and see what's up. Hey, Rebecca. OMG, I just saw Colin Mockery. I love Whose Line. Yeah, I used the cover art is Whose Line Is It Anyway? Which, is an improv show, which I previously had made for, let's see if this will work. There you go. This is something that I had used when I posted a few horror stories. I've been doing something that I think is kind of fun, where I literally go on Twitter, and I say, hey, everybody, in this case, for this article here, I just said, hey, everybody, give me a job. Name a job that somebody does. And I picked 3 at random. I think these were literally the first 3 that were sent to me in this case. And on the spot, on Twitter, tweet after tweet after tweet, I just wrote 3 horror stories. So this is about a wrestling referee. This next one is a caravan site maintenance worker. And the last one is fast food cashier, which was a lot of fun to do. I like the idea of having to think on my feet and just pull something together. Is it the greatest stuff ever written? Probably, yeah. But that's not the point. The point is this sort of like immediacy and the thought experiment of like, hey, can we just whip something up? So that's what I plan to do here and now in just a second. Hey everybody, it's me, Will. I'm live right this second on youtube.com/@themythtraveler. I'm going to be improvising some horror stories. Come hang out, throw some stuff in the chat. It's going to be a good time. And I'm going to make sure that I hopefully have some people in here. Improv horror live. And then I'm just going to write join me. We'll make it brief. But yeah, how's everybody doing? Feel free to pop in the chat what you've been up to lately. If you've been reading something, watching something, playing something. What are you into right now? And then we'll get started in just a minute. I myself, my wife, Allie, and I, literally, within the last 20 minutes, I'm going to say, finished what the New York Times calls their super mega crossword. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the idea is that they, every year for the last 8 or so years, they publish like a 4-page gigantic pamphlet of puzzles. It's only available physically. You cannot do it digitally, which is kind of interesting because I am pretty avidly a player of the crossword, but on my phone. And this year what they did was they published their largest crossword puzzle ever, but hidden within the crossword puzzle are particular hints, which, if you can unscramble them correctly, lead you to the opportunity to win potentially $1,000. My wife and I have literally spent many, many, many late nights trying to solve this thing. And in the last 20 minutes, we cracked it. And it was absolutely as satisfying as you might expect. It was wonderful. So we're in the bucket. Maybe we'll win $1,000. Why not? It's not impossible. JD has just read The Fisherman by John Langan. I'm not familiar with that one. That's interesting, though. Allie and I also just listened to the book Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King, which was very fun. Not strictly speaking a horror story, which I think, I don't know, was like exactly what I was in the mood for. It was like very folksy. It is all from the perspective of a woman who is being interviewed by the police. And so it's all her sort of like stream of consciousness, descriptions of her life and how she's ended up in the situation that she's in. She has been accused of committing a murder, without saying too much. But it is, it's fantastic. It's a little folksy. It's a little funny. And again, it is not a horror novel, but there are a couple things in it that are straight up scary. In a very classic Stephen Kingian sort of way. All right, I think I want to warm up, everybody. I think I want to warm up. JD is getting ready to start listening to The Terror, which is almost 30 hours long. Wow, I also do not know what that is. But I have been in the mood to read The Stand, which is like 47 hours on Audible. So, I don't know, long stuff. We're both maybe doing long stuff. So I put out a poll on Twitter and Instagram of what I should do on this stream. And the options were play a game, do some puzzles, or do some horror writing. And ultimately horror writing won. Very nearly behind it was play a game. And playing a puzzle came in third, which is fine by me. I literally just spent hours working on a mega crossword puzzle. But I'm going to cheat. I feel like playing this game to sort of like warm up. This is, if you're not familiar with this game, if you've never tuned into one of my streams and seen me do this, this is a game from 1983. This is a genuine ancient game called Sleuth. It is a text-based, mostly text-based, murder mystery game. I guess calling it text-based is not fully correct. We're going to just do a basic sleuth round right now. So here we go. Gerald Brisbane was murdered only hours ago. The body was removed by persons unknown from the murder scene. You are now standing at the front door of the Brisbane estate. The door is open. So I can move this little smiley face guy. You're walking down the main hall. The walls are covered with a variety of old master paintings. So you go into each room, you find suspects who you can interview to try to figure out what their alibi is. But in each room, you're also going to get not only a description of the surroundings and the purpose of the room, so this is the conservatory. A baby grand piano sits on a mink throw rug. Each room also has something like this. An oboe lies nestled in the throw rug. That is a potential murder weapon. So each room might have a suspect, but it's got a room name that you got to keep track of, because if somebody's like, I was in the study all night, and then somebody says, no, I was hanging out with that person in the conservatory, they were probably lying about the study, so you got to pay attention to room names. Potential murder weapons to investigate, and somewhere in this house, on this floor plan, one of these rooms has bloodstains on the floor, showing the scene of the crime. We have to figure out the killer, the murder weapon, and the scene of the crime to win. In order to figure out the scene of the crime and the murder weapon, I need to find a magnifying glass. My character did not bring one. They are woefully underprepared, ill-prepared, not prepared at all. So, for example, I cannot investigate the oboe or the room itself. All I can do here is question Victoria Crompton, who is sitting at the piano playing a lilting melody. Victoria replies in an angry voice, I spent the entire evening with Maud in the dining room. Victoria, Maud, dining room. VMD, DMV. And I'm glad Gerald's dead. I would have done it myself if I had the chance, so don't expect any help from me, Inspector. Moving on. DMV. Oh, and here's Maud, right? So maybe we can get some information. This will either corroborate that alibi or who knows. A large butcher block table sits in the middle of the room. The walls are lined with bright brass pots and pans. A silver bottle opener lies on the table. Maud Crompton is making a sandwich. Maud turns abruptly to face you and says, "It's no business of yours." I think it is my business. She replies distractedly, "Well, I spent the entire evening with Victoria in the dining room." Which is what Victoria said, ergo, neither one of them is the killer. They have an alibi. And frankly, Inspector, I'm relieved to have such an ironclad alibi. There are a lot of people in this house who would tell you that I wanted Gerald dead. Well, why did you? In the pantry, there's nobody in here. There is no magnifying glass to take. Therefore, I cannot investigate anything, so I should just move on. Same with the dining room. Candelabra. Still haven't found a magnifying glass, which I need to get anything done. Now we're in the living room. A large divan sits in the middle of the room. Many overstuffed chairs are arranged around the edge of the room. A sterling silver candy dish sits on the table next to the divan. Esther Brisbane is standing next to the divan. Say divan more. Divan? I don't even know how you pronounce it. Esther answers in an annoyed voice. Earl, Esther and Earl, E.E., spent the entire evening together in the conservatory, EEC. EEC, Esther Earl Conservatory. Far be it from me to meddle in your affairs, Inspector, but I really think you should question Victoria. Why, just the other day, Victoria told me that Gerald would be better off dead. Everybody has a motive. EEC. We know Victoria is not the killer, so we just move on. Now, there's a locked room here, just above me, right? No entrance to it. Unless you hunt. This is a secret passageway. The corridor is covered with dusty cobwebs. In the dim light, you can make out the traces of footprints on the dusty floor. A magnifying glass is lying on the floor. Take magnifying glass. Thank you. Hello, Brittany. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just playing a game to get warmed up, and then we're going to start talking about horror. Start thinking of premises you might want me to write about. A particular job, an environment, an odd murder weapon, even just a horror topic. I'm going to ask people for suggestions, and then I think I'm just going to try to write on the spot. We're going to see what happens. It might be the worst thing in the world, and it might be really fun. Let's see. Now that I have the magnifying glass, I can do a lot more. Like, I can examine the floor of the dusty secret passageway. There are only footprints in here. There are no potential murder weapons, so I may as well just find my way out. Here we go. Oh, and all we did was end up right back in the other room, which is kind of a shame. All right, let's examine that silver candy dish then. Whoa! Well, that was lucky. There are traces of blood on it. This must be the murder weapon. So we've already got the murder weapon. We don't have a suspect yet, nor do we have the room, but we've got one of the three that we need. So let's go backwards here. So no need to investigate objects anymore. Just need to examine the floor and question people. So let's question Earl, because I think that EEC, right? Spend the entire evening with Edward in the library. Okay. So now we really need to talk to Edward. I don't remember the name. All I had bothered to remember was EEC. Esther, maybe? Esther and Earl in the conservatory? I need to find Edward to see if he can corroborate Earl's alibi. So many E names. This has suddenly gotten very complicated. All right, so we need... I've already forgotten that name too. L? An L name? This isn't good. Let's examine the floor of this room just to cover our tracks. Nothing. All right. Now, the more moves you take, the closer you may get to losing. Because while I'm hunting the killer, they're hunting me. See, I knew it. I knew it was about to happen. The murderer has grown suspicious of your investigation. That means that I'm taking a little too long. Oh, Brittany already has a suggestion. All right. I don't want to look at it just yet. We'll look at it in just a minute. Maud is not the killer. We had already checked her alibi, but she's staring at the floor, so let's examine the floor. There's nothing unusual. Maud's just in here staring at the ground. All right, Maud. However you want to spend your night, that's fine. Nothing unusual in this room. David Malone is staring at the floor in here. Who's David? Nothing unusual here either, but let's talk to David. I spent the entire evening alone in the conservatory. All right, whatever. Bye, David. Thanks a lot, pal. This is getting bad. Nothing unusual about this floor either. Typically, you need somebody who's staring at the floor. All right, we got traces of blood in this room. This is where somebody was killed. All right, and let's question Esther again, right? I believe she's just going to say, I already told you. Yeah. Earl and I spent the entire evening in the conservatory. Okay. The murderer is now stalking me, which is worse than the killer just growing suspicious of what I'm doing. This means, by the way, now that the killer is stalking me, any door I go through might be my last. Victoria, who we know is innocent. This is useless. Let's just hope I get lucky. I'm going to take candy dish. Now, here's the thing. You are now carrying the murder weapon. This actually increases the chances that the killer will try to knock me off. So, that's bad. But I'm just going to hope that I'll go through this door and the person I need to speak to is in it. Damn it! In a flash, Esther Brisbane locks the door behind you, grabs the candy dish from your hands, and cautious you over the head. I guess that wraps up this investigation. Yeah, I guess so. I lost. And here I was, thinking that I needed to talk to the guy that Earl said that he was with to see if Earl had been lying. But Esther was lying when she said that she was with Earl in the first place. Son of a bitch. That's what I got. That's what I got. A classic coshing. I got coshed. Right in the head, everybody. Good gosh. A kosh. Okay. So, let's just get right into working on a story here then, right? So, I've got a blank page. One of my favorite things to see. What's this? So, Brittany has suggested the following. I'm going to copy the emojis as well. Whoa. Oh my. Huh. Okay, let's get rid of this. And make all the text black. Oh, okay. An office that's half-staffed, and instead of posting the vacant positions to get new people hired, they just expect everyone to pick up the slack. The horror. Yeah. It's a familiar story, I think. I think many people may have experienced this. So let's talk about what we need, right, for a horror story, right? So there's the protagonist, the antagonist, why don't we just go simple? Everybody, throw out, let's see, we could start from an occupation. We could start with a, oh boy, a family member. Who's a family member? The most deadly family member. Does that make sense? Let's write a story about the most deadly family member. What is that? Does that spark anything for people watching? Feel free to drop. Not literally a relative of yours. Dad? The most deadly family member. Dad, grandma. Okay, I like it. Dad, grandma. All right. And what makes what is their weakness? What's their or what do they want? What's their big goal? Let me think. And while I see what you may or may not send my way, let me see something here. Dad and grandma, the most deadly family members. Let's see. And grandma wants to make you eat hard candies. I like Grandma. Dad is too literal statistically. Yeah, I want to stay away from just something that's sad. Boy. How about a hobby? Hit me with a hobby. Yeah. Forget family member. Maybe they'll end up working their way into the story, but hit me with a hobby. Grandma doesn't approve of her grandkids inheriting her money for silly reasons. That's fun. That is fun. Yeah, I mean, I already crochet. Okay. Grandma, crochet, don't inherit the money. Fishing as a hobby. Jamie, hey! What's happening? How are you doing? We're talking about killer family members and strange hobbies, if you'd like to throw one out. And I'm going to start trying to pull together a story here. Let's see. But how's it going? How is your night going? And let's see. All right. Grandma, crochet, don't inherit the money. So the first thing that makes me think is that Grandma believes that her death is imminent, and that none of her children or grandchildren are worthy of her fortune. So she plans to entomb herself like an old pharaoh, taking all her belongings with her. She can take it with her. What do you think of that? It's kind of crazy. Fishing as a hobby. I would love to just like for the purposes of improv, right? Like just whatever you say, I find some way to work it in, right? Why not? And what do I need here? Should we, for the purposes of, or you know what I can do to make sure that this is, the margins I'm not going to change, you know? So let's take that and let's size it up a bit. Right? All right. There may be times where I accidentally scroll away or something, but I'll try to keep everything necessary behind the screen. She's knitting herself behind a wall, cask of Amontillado style. Yeah. Have you seen those pictures of people literally knitting or crocheting themselves up in a cocoon? I have not. Okay. Knitting into a cocoon. Let me see here. What'll work well for this? Yeah, there we go. Knitting into a cocoon. Wow. Wow. How weird is that? Hey, I appreciate it, Jamie. Thank you very much. Knitting into a cocoon. So this is what Grandma's up to, huh? And she's got all of her belongings in there, right? Like, she's doing this around herself and also around her home. And here's the other thing, is like, didn't sometimes the pharaohs, like, they were buried? I mean, listen, I don't know if this is actually true. I remember, like, kids saying this on the playground. So please, I'm sorry I'm so stupid. But didn't they also sometimes bury themselves with somebody? I know pets, famously. There was like, the pharaoh's pets would end up dead in there. What if she knits versions of her family members? I think she's been knitting cocoons for everybody. Right? You're not worthy of my possessions, which means that your offspring, they were buried with their pets, says Jamie. Yeah. Right? They buried the servants with them. Yeah. See, I think that Grandma has decided that her lineage is too weak. There is exactly one person who she thinks is fit to carry on the lineage, and everybody else is getting cocooned with Grandma. right? Everybody's getting cocooned. This is crazy. Brittany, hell of a thing to reference. Okay. Slasher season 4? That happens in Slasher season 4? How is it? See, this is like, we've improved our way to something that seems like it never, ever, ever could have happened before. But you're saying that it happened in Slasher season 4. Slasher season 4. Sarah Bennett's family. I don't want to get spoiled on this. I've never seen the show. I don't even know if I should look it up. All right, fine. This is. I'm gonna write what happens in Slasher season 4. Evidently, that is crazy. That is crazy. He makes them compete for a spot in the family. Oh, okay. All right. Grandma cocooning everybody in a crocheted cocoon is a little bit different, is what you're saying. All right. Brittany, grandma, crocheted cocoons. This is all you, Brittany. Good God. Okay. That's crazy. Which also is like knitting yourself behind a wall cask of Amontillado style. So JD, I think that you were on the exact right wavelength. All right, let's just start working here. This is like some of the craziest. This is the craziest possible beginning. The craziest possible beginning. So this is where it started. The most dangerous family member, right? And then look at where we've already gotten to. All right, I'm an organization dork, so give me 1 second here. I just want to be organized for if I do like put this on the website or anything, I want to properly credit some of these insane ideas. What if grandma is bad at knitting? Well, see, this is where I'm going to get in trouble with my wife. Crocheting is different from knitting. Crochet uses the hook, derived from the French term crochet, meaning hooks. And a hook as a weapon is like very like Candyman, right? Like, yeah. Metal, wood, bamboo, or plastic. So if you crocheted something, what does it look like? So it still is like a blanket. And you can crochet clearly in a circle. I just need to make sure that I never mention knitting needles or my wife is going to crochet a cocoon around me and kill me. You gotta be careful with these things. She keeps dropping stitches and stuff so people have little holes to look out of and breathe through. It's a new hobby. It takes forever. She's constantly making errors and dropping a stitch. That's funny. All right. Let's see how this works. Knitting is more stressful and less forgiving. Is that right? I think crocheting just sounds a lot more specific, and I like the idea of it using a hook, because it allows me to say something like, when you think of a crazed murderer, most often you imagine them wielding a knife. But no. Grandma used a hook. Right? You stay out of trouble with Allie too. Yeah, I've gotta be careful. I gotta watch my own back with Al. Okay. Let's see. How about, yeah, there you go. Mabel Brooks was born during Let's go a little bit older. Was born just before the Second World War, and while she was always believed the war had changed her. And not in a particularly great way. Grandma wasn't warm. She wasn't loving. She didn't bake us cookies or tell us bedtime stories. One of my earliest memories is when she forced me to stand with my back against the wall. She told me my posture was terrible, that my shoulders were rounding, and if I didn't straighten out, I'd end up crooked. This is a mix already of something that actually happened to me. So Kristen, my sister Kristen, Guide to the Unknown, we had at one point, and I should use this as well. At some point in the early 2000s, I believe, a family feud in my family was resolved. I'd never heard anything of it. I was an early teenager, you know. Mabel living at the home from Elder Things. If you believe me, I'm thinking about Elder Things with this. I love an old person. But when we met these family members that I'd never heard about before because of some old feud that who cares what it was even about, we met my dad's cousin, and her husband had been a Marine, I want to say. And so he was a hard ass. And there was one day that we were at some sort of a family get-together, because all of a sudden, now that the feud was complete, we started just seeing them all the time. It was like, oh, great, we're going to do this a lot. And he made Kristen and me stand with our backs against the wall, and very much like in a regimented drill sergeant sort of way, made sure that our shoulders were back, and really it was like intimidating. He was, you know, I was a kid. I was 12, I don't know. And this was like a 60, 70-year-old man who I don't know, barking at me and telling me what I'm doing is wrong. It was super, super intimidating and weird. And for this reason, I want to work that in here. Yeah, not someone that I knew at all. At all. Okay. I didn't even know she existed until I was in my early teens. I mean, I had logically reasoned that my mom probably had parents of her own. That much I knew. But I had never met my mother's parents. She never spoke about them. And so I had also logically, what have I done? Logically reasoned that wherever they were probably dead. Wrong. I don't know how I made the font size increase. This is interesting. I assume I'm writing in font size 10. One day, I was hanging out in the living room, minding my own business, playing some Sega Genesis, and into the room walks a decrepit, loathsome. How horrible do I want even the first interaction with Grandma to be? She crept into the room like instantly from the jump. She was horrifying. I thought you were going to say for that reason I want to cocoon him in crochet. I think he's part of the motivation of who this person is, and I think I've got somebody else who inspires this, who I can't even talk about yet. Someday. One day I was hanging out in the living room minding my business, playing some Sega Genesis, when my mom walked in, arm in arm with an old woman She stared at me in awe. She stared at me. And immediately I felt exposed, uncomfortable. It wasn't just that she was a stranger to me. It was a feeling I'd imagine prey. It was a feeling I'd imagine small rabbits have when a bird of prey caws from somewhere nearby. JD, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for your suggestions. Have a good night. This is pretty fun, and I'm sure I'll catch you soon. Imminent. Is this the second time I've used the word imminent? Grandma believes that her death is imminent. I wrote up here. That's funny. How strange is that? Imminent danger. Again, I was wrong. Grandma, though wildly frail looking, lived another 20 years from that moment. Not one of them pleasant. One of my earliest memories when she forced me to stand with my back against the wall. She told me my posture was terrible, that my shoulders were rounding, and if I didn't straighten out, I'd, quote, end up crooked. I'd grow up crooked. Well, part of me couldn't believe it was even happening. She had picked a moment where my mother wasn't around. I had always been taught to listen to adults, and here she. And so I did my best to follow this drill sergeant's instructions. It was intimidating. To this day, I'm not sure I've ever felt smaller. That's the kind of grandma I suddenly had. The day she moved in with us, I nearly ran away. I couldn't bear the thought of waking up each morning to some unknown to some inevitable criticism and leering eye judging my every decision, meal, and hobby. The older she got, at least she bop bop beep bop 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 bop. Let's see. Ba 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 ba. Whatever feud had kept her away for the first I remember wishing I could whatever feud kept her away remained a mystery to me. Mom seemed clueless as to how miserable Grandma was to be around. I think she almost reverted to becoming a little girl whose mommy knew best. I was on my own to handle her venomous comments about my weight. Worse, I was helpless. But to if your parents start behaving differently, more coldly because grandma's here now, like the story you told about your mom talking in an accent when you were little, only make it dark and spooky. Wow, that's so funny. Yeah, that was a weird thing. I was like, and I do this all the time right now. My daughter keeps wanting me to talk like Nemo from Finding Nemo. I don't have to do a good impression or anything. I can literally just be like, my dad's coming to get me. He lives across the ocean. And baby Zoe will be like, oh, he's coming. He's going to come get you. But then she'll just sort of be like, I'm having peaches for lunch. Like, she just wants to talk to Nemo. And if I stop any character, she'll be like, talk like Cookie Monster. I want Cookie Monster to talk. Which is adorable. But I remember being a kid and my mom speaking with an Irish accent. And I would say, please stop speaking in an Irish accent. And she said something along the lines of like, I can't. This is just how I am now. This is how I'm going to speak from now on. And it terrified me. Like, mommy's not Mommy, oh no. And here I've got a daughter who only wants me to be Cookie Monster and stuff, which is incredibly sweet. I was on my own to handle her venomous comments about my weight. Mommy knew best. Meanwhile, I was becoming something of a soldier, vigilantly listening for any suggestion that Grandma had gotten up in the middle of the night as she was walking toward my room. It had happened more than a few times. For some reason, it didn't seem to matter just how late at night it was. But if Grandma had determined I was awake, listening to music, light under the door from my computer, she would drop in and give me unsolicited advice. No one likes a porker. Kids today are destined to, I don't know. No one likes a porker. Feels like something an old person would say. That's like a horrible thing to say to a kid. Kids today are destined to kids today will never amount to a hill of beans. Old person insults. Great. Thank you, Grandma. Good night. Bark unsolicited advice through the door. Something cliche about video games rotting your brain. Yeah. Brains were bigger back then. I don't know. Great. Thank you, Grandma. Good night. I think I want... most days she was perched on an easy chair in the corner, always knitting something. A blanket, a hat, who knows. It was just something to keep her busy, I guess. Oh, I'm putting knitting in now so that Grandma can go, it's not knitting, it's crocheting. Knitting uses a needle. Crocheting is a hook, and I want her to brandish the hook. Um, whenever another hat, Mom practically fell to her hands and two needles. Yes, thank you. I apologize. Meanwhile, I was removing something of a soldier, vigilantly listening for any suggestion that Grandma had gotten up in the middle of the night that she was walking toward my room. It had happened more than a few times. Oh, I appreciate it. You got my back. The feeling that my dog imminent danger. Great. Thank you, Grandma. Good night. I want another dog reference. I just dropped a dog reference in early because I just came up with another horrible thing. I think we're going to start pivoting to what Grandma did that was horrific. All right. And I think the dog factors into it. And I think the crochet hook factors into it. Oh, and there was something else. There was another bit of foreshadowing that I wanted to drop that I just thought of. That dog of yours has a neater haircut. Kids today will never amount to a hill of beans. Maybe she was just trying to secure some inevitable inheritance. By all accounts, I'd heard Grandma was loaded. Rich from some sort of wartime earnings from her father. She had run a few businesses herself. And here she had come to run my home like a cut throat CEO. Who expects everyone to work ever harder? Instead of an employee, though, I was starting to feel something like a soldier vigilantly on guard. Thank you, Grandma. Good night. There you go. I just worked your original suggestion in, Brittany, with that CEO line. They, instead of posting vacant positions to get new people hired, they just expect everyone else to pick up the slack. cutthroat CEO that is now in here. If I can work JD's farming concept. Or not farming, fishing, right? Thank you, Grandma. Good night. The perfect horror movie timing. She often creakily pulled the door shut as slowly as humanly possible, her hate-filled expression gradually sinking away into the darkness of the hall. A couple of times, I even suspected she had remained behind the closed door for several minutes before returning to her room. Years of living like this. Years. It had been getting better, to be fair. Time marches on. I grew up. Still living at home, sadly. And Grandma got ever weaker. Eventually she seldom left her room. Part of me is ashamed to admit that I hated visiting her. Mom would sometimes urge me to drop in on Grandma and chat. My relationship, my mom had become strained. She plainly refused to acknowledge how uncomfortable life had gotten with her mother around. She wouldn't hear it. But at the same time, she was more likely to urge me to visit with Grandma than do it herself. One day, I told her she wasn't. She didn't deserve the inheritance. Mom just stared at me. The hurt on her face was devastating. When the dog went missing, some of my friends joked that Grandma had eaten him. But here's the crazy part. They were almost right. This is crazy. I mean, this is a sharp pivot to just being like, let's get to the reveal. But I think it works decently enough. I found out why Grandma didn't leave her room anymore. Have to transition from creepy grandma to totally unhinged grandma. Yeah, let's see how this goes. We'll do like a draft, and then I think I'll call it quits, and maybe I'll work it over and put it on the website or something. We'll see. I found out why grandma didn't leave her room anymore. It was one of those nights where the moon is so bright you almost don't need to turn on the lights. I lay in bed, scrolling through smiling faces, ranking horror movies, sharing life hacks. And whatever nonsense of the moment. It was the first time I didn't hear her come into the room, I think. Even now. It's only just now occurring to me that she had perhaps successfully snuck in before. But if that's the case, she didn't say a word. She just padded lightly. She just waddled slowly beside me, reached out and wrapped a mass of yarn around my head, ever she meant to suffocate me. In the movies, sometimes you see someone who's had plastic wrapped over their face. It's awful. I think we can all relate to at least the concept of suffocating. Who hasn't been underwater and frantically paddled to the surface, worrying that they won't make it in time? It's crazy. But in some ways, this was worse. I could breathe. Just barely. Not enough. Not nearly enough. Grandma was strong. Way stronger than I ever would have thought. Gotten stuck with a dress, caught on their arms over their head in a dressing room, and you can't breathe and you're all alone, half naked and slowly suffocating. Good God. I mean, that sounds horrible. That sounds horrible. And then she let go. But no matter how much I pulled the bag, I think should tied some loose threads around my neck. When you're done panicking, nod your head. She was insane. I always knew she was insane. All the same, eventually I realized there was no escaping on my own. Light just dimly I could make out parts of the room through the tight weave around my face. I nodded, unsure what had happened next, but certain that I needed to do whatever it took to get this goddamn thing off my head, to take a deep lungful of air. I was choking. Follow me. Grandma led me down the hall and into her room. It smelled horrible, damp, rotten. It smelled like decay. I wondered if it could be the dog hadn't gone missing. It was there on the floor. Grandma reached out and swiftly cut a single eye hole for me. A small round I don't even know how to say. I don't even know how to say the phrase I want to say here. Like a woven bag, a yarn bag, a knitted, crocheted yarn thing is on the ground in front of her. You know, a small. Recklessly fast, Grandma reached out and cut a single eye hole for me. The room was covered in knitting. The sack she's entombed the dog in, yeah. Not the walls, but everything else. She had entombed, sacked, wrapped. She had knit. She had wrapped just about everything in knitting. Let's see. Better term, fiber prison. That's where she would go to jail if she were caught by the police. Just about everything in knitting. So what's another object? Like, was there a... in a woven bag? Bundled in fabric. There on the floor at the foot of her was a rounded bundle of fabric. It would almost be cute if I couldn't see what it contained. Depicted in the yarn was the image of my dog. What did I name the dog? Millie? Show me dog. Missy. Like a label on the side of a moving box. The dog hadn't gone missing. It was there on the floor, wrapped up like a Christmas present. I looked from the dog I looked from the dog's cocoon back to my grandma, who for the first time smiled. They say you can't take it with you, but what do they expect me to do? Leave all my belongings in the care of my undeserving progeny? For the first time, I spotted a human-shaped cocoon sitting up in the bed. A smiling image of my mother woven at the head. Mom's cocooned. This is what you've been knitting? I don't know why that was my first question. I think I just realized on some level how hopeless my situation was. Knitting. Grandma sneered. Grandma almost recoiled at the term. Now I know. If I didn't already know how worthless you were, that would have sealed your fate. Knitting is done with a pair of needles. Do you see any needles around here? I didn't. But then again. She had wrapped the entire damn room in psychotic in thread, like some sort of overgrown spider. I didn't want to say yarn, I wanted thread, because I think technically people would be more comfortable with the idea of being like a spider has thread, you know? Do you see any needles around here? It's not knitting. It's called crocheting. It's when you use a hook. She lifted a small tool in front of my singular eye hole. Come to think of it, I did kind of recognize it. Simile, yes, thank you. But you merely began the process of sealing. The world closed once more. I remember in school reading about how the pharaohs were buried with all their worldly possessions. Sometimes they even took the pets with them. This is a crazy way to end the story, but you might think I've gone insane myself. But as I lay there feeling my grandmother build a cocoon around me, sending me away from the world. It occurred to me I just didn't have the strength to fight back. She later narrated the process of cocooning herself. Here we were, 3 generations together, along with the family dog. Someone would find us at some point. Who knows what the hell would happen then? But one thing is for certain. We didn't deserve the inheritance. Grandma was right. I was too. We didn't deserve the inheritance. This is I mean, that's stupid. Right? Like, that's crazy. So she's not fighting back in any way, shape, or form. Like, I wonder if grandma maybe also pulls a plastic bag on top of the knit bag. I don't know. Right? Like, but like, for real, for like literally thinking about this for the first time an hour ago. This is a pretty fun first draft, right? Like, this is a pretty fun idea. I might tweak it from here. Maybe I'll make some edits. I think I would like to do like an audiobook version as well. But that's just kind of like a crazy fun story. I do think maybe the ending, maybe I've got to rework some of that ending to give the character a little more agency, a little more fight back, a better lesson to learn, right? Yeah, we don't deserve the inheritance. Is that what this was all about? Because we don't deserve it, right? Like, I wonder what they were fighting about. Like, what was the fight that ended? What was that feud about? But there you go. That's a little improv horror from a prompt, from a little discussion, and then creating a story. Is it perfect? Is it complete? No, I don't think that it could be. But boy, is that like a fun and I think like very unique story. Grandma crocheting a tomb for herself and everybody else because her family is unworthy. You know, like that's crazy. So again, I might make edits from here, but this video will always be the document of how it was born. And thank you so much to Brittany and JD earlier. Brittany, these were awesome ideas. Grandma, crochet, cocoons. Insane. Totally insane. Super duper fun. Text form, audio drama, all of it. Yeah, I definitely will. I'll definitely be digging in to do another like a run through or something. Like, expect to see this again on the website. But this was fun. It was a good time. Just a little spur of the moment kind of thing. I might do this again. Honestly, I might do some more like Thursday night streams. You know, Thursday night streams. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you engaging in this with me. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night. I'm sure that I'll see you soon. There's a new Guide to the Unknown at midnight Eastern, which is at this point 34 minutes away. Yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, Brittany, and anybody who might watch this in the future. This is a crazy, crazy story. Bye.